As you probably know from watching my videos, making scenes has been a part of my life for a very long time. I'm going to tell you now, this time around, about two very special and very large shadow box scenes that I'm working on, and I got them, probably about 10 years ago now, at a yard sale on Raccoon Street in Saginaw, Michigan, and they were $10 a piece, an excellent price considering that each of these has, they're in the shape of a building, and each of them has 16 rooms in it, so that my idea was to make a different scene or setting in each room, and I call these my miniature museum. Originally, I had planned to make it a miniature museum of creation and Bible history, and I had it completed at one point, and it was astonishing to me to think about the materials that I had in there. But because of some financial constraints, I ended up having to sell everything that had been in it, and actually put these two buildings out by the road for the garbage man to pick up, because I was determined I was not going to work on it a second time. I was very discouraged that I had to get rid of everything that was in there. Well, anyways, a friend of mine, Daniel Brodigan, convinced me to bring them back into my house and put them aside, because thinking I might want to use them and work on them again at one point or another, which is what I've done. These are going to be, again, miniature museum, not Bible or creation history, because I could never reestablish what I had. But these are common, and some uncommon, household things from, say, about 1850 up through 1980s. I'm going to show you that the first building is done, and I'm going to show you in this program each of those rooms and tell you a little bit about what's in them. And then I'm continuing to work on the second building, and when that one's complete, I'll bring that story to you too. So with that said, let's look at some of the rooms in my miniature museum, part 1. In this first picture is an overall view of the building number 1 in my miniature museum. And you can also see to the left-hand side building number 2, which is I'm beginning to just work on recently. There are 16 rooms in each building. The tallest would be the attic room, where at the peak it would be about 10 inches tall, and then tapers down. After that, the rooms vary in size depending on what floor you're on. So on my little tour for you here, we'll take the rooms in order, and the first one contains a beautiful little hand-painted china porcelain dish on the back wall, and that was made in Japan, marked in red on the back, and could have been a soap dish or for business cards or anything like that. Next to that is a fan that folds open and closed. It has a beautiful color lithograph on it showing different masted ships and their sails, and that was actually an advertising premium or device given away here in Saginaw, Michigan back in the 1890s. And then if you look in the foreground, there's a stylized gravy boat with handle. This dates back to the 1960s, where stylized things were in a lot of demand, as well as were traditional. And next to that is a covered sugar bowl. Oh, by the way, the gravy boat was made here in the USA. The sugar bowl is a nice little piece that probably hails from the 1940s or 50s. And these are all in really good condition. Now in the foreground are a couple of very small miniature stopper top bottles. These are from the 1890s. Well, the taller one's from the 1890s. The smaller one probably from the 1870s. There are also 2 glass stoppers, one amber, one crystal clear, and over in the right-hand corner is a cute little mouse, ceramic. And this mouse reminds me a little bit of my mom, because I remember when I was a teenager, early teenager, back in the late 1960s, a set of these were being produced, and I would buy one for her or my mother each month when these came into Cunningham's drugstore, which was on the Dixie Highway next to Weber's IGA Foodliner. But the little guy is super cute, and was made in Japan and has a paper tag underneath. This is a favorite room of mine. Not the favorite, because I can't pick a single favorite, but this one is a personal favorite of mine. And again, portions of it remind me of my mom, especially when I was a little kid, because the child's dish on the left, or right, excuse me, was made by Buffalo Pottery, and this one was made about 1909, and when I was a little kid, my mom had one that she had, almost identical to this, when she was a little kid, and I would get to use that dish once in a while, which was a really special treat. And I really love that piece in particular. The children on it look a little bit like the Campbell kids of the 1920s. I believe they're done by the same artist. This dish is not in the it's in good condition. The actual images on it are a little bit scratchy, but they're awesome nonetheless. The children dressed in Dutch type clothing, which explains the rest of the figures and pieces in this particular room, because there is on the left of the plate a little Dutch boy and a little Dutch girl. They were made in Japan, probably 1940s, 1950s, and you'll notice they have a yoke over their shoulders. When they were originally sold in the stores, this would have had a small wooden bucket on each side of the yoke. Unfortunately, you don't find those intact very often, but the figures are absolutely adorable. In the background are 2 ceramic coasters. These are not old, but they represent a commemorative piece from the Holland American line, which began in 1873, and these 2 pieces were given to me for the collection by Jean Davila. And then in the foreground, the shoe, with the Delft blue, the windmill. It was made in Holland, and is marked so, and is made to look somewhat like the wooden shoes. This one, of course, being porcelain. Very nice room. As I said, one of my very favorites. Now, unfortunately, this room, which is number 1, is out of focus, but the plate on the back left was made in Japan. It has an oriental seam that was hand painted on the piece with predominantly gold tones, accents, if you will. And then in the back to the right is a stylized picture. There is not a manufacturer mark on it. I'm thinking it's the 1960s, though, because of the almost psychedelic look to the colors on it. In the foreground, on the right, is a small glass basket, really beautiful piece from the 1970s. The handle applied separately as in the process of manufacture. Glass baskets were very collectible, in vogue in part of the 1970s, and this is one of those. This one where it stands maybe about 2 inches tall. Most of them were quite a lot larger than this. It's the first kind of miniature one that I've actually seen. And then in the middle is a hand-painted creamer, which was made in Bavaria, and it is in very good condition, and the workmanship on it is absolutely beautiful. Room number 4 here, and again, slightly out of focus, and I apologize for that. The rest of the photos, I think, are all in pretty good shape. But in this one, is in the very back is a cream bottle, probably 1940s, 50s. I found it here in Saginaw, Michigan, on the surface of the ground, not too far from the Potter Street railway station. It is in very good condition, but it is not marked as to what company it's from. On the right is a green-eyed, beautiful little black cat, and that cat, I can't remember the country of origin, but it is carved from black, hard coal. And next to that is a small green marble, found at the same site that the milk bottle was. So dating, I believe, to about the same era. But the two bottles on the left are from a different era and different site. The tall one, I believe, probably was a perfume bottle. The smaller one, perhaps a medicine bottle. But both of those are in really good condition. And as far as stopper top bottles go, they're pretty nice. Room number 5. This has part of a collection of brown-like stoneware that I obtained at a local thrift store here in Saginaw. There, I believe, were about 7 or 8 pieces altogether. All were in remarkably good condition, and most of them were either marked "Made in Japan" on the bottom, or had a small blue sticker on the bottom that said "Made in Japan." On the left is a covered sugar bowl. The ornamentation hand applied. On the right is a sort of tripod bowl. It has 3 short stubby legs. I'm not sure its use or if it originally had a cover, but I'd say it was probably another sugar bowl of the same brownware, but of a different set. As you can tell the difference between the ornamentation on it, though it still is hand applied. Leaning up against that piece is a really cool little spoon, which may have been a child's spoon, but it could have been used in a sugar bowl also. This is one of the type that has the spiral handle in part, and these must have been quite popular back in the early 1900s, late 1800s, because this one was actually found by Gil Alberg, a friend of mine, but I found 3 or 4 that measured about 8 inches long with that spiral handle at the house that David and I used to live at here in Saginaw at 1016 Stevens. I believe those ones probably would have been for ice cream, sodas, sundaes, whatever. The little monkey in the front is probably one of the cutest little figurines that is in this collection. He too was made in Japan. He's in remarkably good condition. I believe 1950s. In the background are 3 antique pieces. On the left is a Roman soldier. This was a cigarette pack card from the 1920s. It is a color lithograph. The other 2 cards were Bible collecting cards that were given out in Sunday school. These are from 1898 and are beautiful full-color lithographs. By the way, both these units are on display in my kitchen. Here is room number 6. Love this room too. I used a fake brickwork on the back wall and side walls, and to give a really old feeling to this particular room. Hanging from the ceiling of the room are 2 small cups. They were probably child's toy cups. Both were made in Japan. And the little sandwich plates in the background on the wall were also made in Japan. I'm thinking these were the plates were probably 1960s, as were the cups. Now, there are 3 creamers here, and I love these pieces. The mauve one on the left was made by Rosemead, probably in 1940s. The green picture in the center is unmarked as to manufacturer, but I believe comes from the 1930s, while the brownware transfer pattern piece on the end, I believe, dates probably to the very early 1900s, and I believe it was made in the UK. In front of these are 3 really cool glass animals, and I remember when these were popular back in the late 1960s. My mom and dad used to take me to the truck stop restaurant out by Birch Run once in a while for or supper with them a few times that we would eat out, and you could buy these there. And on the left is a really beautiful bird, and then a seal in the center, and a wonderful little penguin bringing up the right-hand side. This is room number 7, and it has only one single element in it, but it still is really pretty. On the walls, I used a reproduction of antique wallpaper. This is a lovely pastel shades of pink and gray. The the piece in this room is a vase. It is in the shape of a swan. These were very popular back in the day. This one probably 1940s, 1950s. It has the flowers that were raised up off the piece, which usually when you find them anymore, those flowers are severely chipped, as are the leaves. This one's not. It is in very good condition. I remember my grandma having several pieces not unlike this when her and Grandpa were alive and living, also here in Saginaw. Here we have room number 9, and this is really an interesting room. And we'll begin with the walls themselves. The strip along the top of the walls is actually wallpaper border that I took out of the home that David and I lived on at 1016 South Bates here in Saginaw. The house dated back to the late 1800s. This wallpaper was underneath layers and layers of paint, and so I'm thinking it was probably one of the original coverings for the walls in there. It's in not the greatest shape, but it still has a lot of character, and I couldn't stand to dispose of it, so it is the border in this room. In the middle, applied to the wallpaper border, is part of the head of a porcelain doll, which looked like it was almost sliced right in half. And she's probably from the 1880s, 1890s. Then as we come into the room itself, let's start on the right. A precious little cat, made in Japan. But behind the cat is a really beautiful hand-painted sugar bowl. Missing the top, doesn't matter to me. It is in absolutely beautiful condition. It was made in Bavaria, Germany, probably around 1990 or so, in that era. And right next to that is a small creamer with roses on it. I don't believe these were hand painted. I believe they were transferred. I don't know the country of manufacture on this piece. And then to the left of that little piece is an absolutely beautiful creamer. I love it, the way it's styled, the way the handle is, the roses on it. These were all hand painted, and this is again from Bavaria, Germany, probably 1880s, 1890s. It is in excellent condition. And then to the left of that, a small bisque red-headed woodpecker bird that is marked on the base, made in Japan, and I believe he probably came from the 30s or 1940s. This, to me, this is a really cool room. Up next is room number 10, and this has 2 more pieces of the brownware that I told you about a little bit ago. The teapot. You know, the funny thing is, when I've been out on digging, treasure hunting, digging, and all that over the years, I probably found hundreds of pieces of this type of ware, including pieces of teapots. So it is kind of cool to see the complete teapot. All the ornamentation is hand applied. It is made in Japan, and it's probably from the 1930s. Next to it is a small creamer, which I believe is maybe a little bit different set from the teapot. Still brownware, still hand-applied ornamentation on it, but it's a little bit different ornamentation than on the teapot itself. Next to that, in the front, is a precious little stylized cat. No maker marks on it, but I believe it's from the 1970s. The 2 women are cutouts representing the Victorian era. On the floor is a fake antique brick, and that makes up room number 10. Okay, this is slightly out of order. I was wondering what happened to room number 8. This is room number 8, and this has the second teapot that was in the collection that I purchased. It has, again, hand-applied ornamentation on it. It is in excellent condition, 1930s, marked on the bottom, made in Japan. The little covered sugar bowl next to it, again, looks to be of a different collection or set of the brownware. It too is made in Japan. It too, I believe, is from the 1930s, perhaps a little bit earlier. These are both in excellent condition, except for a few chips around the spout of the teapot. Background was I printed off the internet, and it was based on an antique design. Here we have room number 11. Two more of the brownware pieces. It looks like one piece, but they're actually two, one stacked on top of the other. These are both from the same set. I'm not sure what these would have been used for in particular. They are, again, the ornamentation hand applied. On the right, a small stopper top bottle, 1880s. I'm wondering if that wasn't like a miniature whiskey bottle, because it very much has the shape of the coffin flask whiskey bottles of that same era. In the front is a spoon, made in England, I believe, and I dug this from underneath our house at 1016 Stevens, and the metal, the base metal is solid, but the silver overlay is pretty much eroded away. And to the left of that is a small, partially brown jug, the kind that you'd expect to see moonshiners use, except this is a small piece. It's actually part of a salt and pepper set. And these items uniquely make up room number 11. Room number 12. This is a really nice room that I very much like, and I very much love the pieces that are in it. Two of the brownware pieces. Again, in the back is a cold cast resin piece showing the three crosses, the middle, of course, representing the life, death, and burial of our blessed Lord Savior, Jesus the Christ. On the right is a very nice milk pitcher in the brownware. It is in excellent condition. Blue tag on the bottom says made in Japan. And again, all of the ornamentation was hand applied. To the left of that is a small creamer of a different set, but still the brownware. Again, hand applied design, a little more ornate than on the milk pitcher there, but it is in also remarkably good condition. On the bottom right is a small Wade porcelain china orangutan, and that came out of, I forget what kind of tea. Still put these in as premiums when you buy the tea. And then a little like snow bunny cat. It has the mottled rough surface, like the snow bunnies, or small snow babies, I should say, of years gone by. This one made in Japan, and I'm thinking it was 1940s or maybe 1950s. Room 13 is unusual compared to the rest of the display because it is more of a fantasy scene at a park, and the old man in the background has the balloons that he's bringing to these four precious little children. Two of the kids on a roughly made teeter-totter, and then on the right, little girl helping her little baby brother up to the fountain to get a drink. In the back are weeds that Queen Anne's lace in particular that I picked and dried. And then on the far right, at the bottom, is another Wade figurine, this one being a small beaver. And then at the base of the little girl with the drinking fountain is a round ball, milk glass. I think may have been a very big marble, which we called boulders back in my time. I think that's about all that I can say about this room, other than it was fun to put together. I don't really know where these pieces were made. I know they're from the 1970s, though. Room 14 has only the one element in it. It is a milk pitcher of the brownware that I've been showing you. It is slightly larger than the one I just showed you a little bit ago. It has very ornate designs on it. These were all hand applied. and I'm thinking it was from the 1930s, perhaps late 1920s. It is in almost perfect condition. Both of these units have 2 attic rooms apiece. This one is kind of cool. On the left wall is a bisque piece that was made in Japan. It's been made to look like it's framed, and it's has depth, so it's an interesting 3-dimensional look. Below that and to the rear are 2 Victorian era business or advertising cards. The little girl in the front with the red and green is actually a planter, and I believe she's probably from the 1940s. Next to her is a little colonial boy playing some type of stringed instrument. The little cat next to him, this also is a small planter. This piece made in Japan also, probably 1940s, 1950s, in excellent condition. And next to him is another really fine piece. I found her at a yard sale, and I think she goes to the 1920s, marked on the bottom, made in Japan. She is a like maybe a Southern belle with a full dress on and carrying a very large basket, which either of these 2 small pieces may have been used as toothpick holders or to put small dried flowers in. To the left of her are 2 bottle stoppers, glass bottle stoppers, and in the rear, with a little bit of gloss, unfortunately, is a Victorian era die-cut little boy dressed up in really fancy clothes. It's obvious that he comes from a rich and ritzy family. Finally, attic room number 1 again has some interesting pieces in it. On the far right, there's a small amber bottle which was carried some kind of medicinal wafer in it. Behind that, at the back, are 2 coffin flasks, or whiskey flasks of the coffin type style. I believe the one on the right probably is from the 1880s, the one on the left 1880s, 1890s. Next to them, the yellow saucer in the back is kind of a Fiesta ware type 1940s. And the foreground on the right is also a Falstaff beer bottle miniature with cap. This was probably made in the 1960s. Reminds me a little bit of my dad because he sure did love his beer. Next to that is a Spanish type figural bottle, Spanish type lady, which had crema que coa in it. Part of the contents is still inside of the bottle, but she is in very good condition and really a special and very pretty piece. I'm thinking circa 1950s. Next to her is another small amber bottle. This one was somewhat related to the one at the far right. It had a medicinal wafer type thing in it, or thing, medicine, if you will. Next to that is a small tin that held Imperial Cube Cut tobacco, and while the tin is scratched up in that, it is an interesting piece indeed, dating back to the 1920s. And next to it is a matchbox from Sweden, I believe it was, and dates to the 1920s also. That's a rather rare piece. You don't see those very often. So what I've shown you is building 1 in my miniature museum, and I'll show you building 2 after it's completed. It is still a work in progress, and I actually just began working on the second building a few days ago. Thanks for stopping by and taking a look, and God bless.